So can you tell a little bit more about how you have raised funding? Yes, so we have raised friends and family and angel round. So our first investment was through friends, family, and angels. Well, it's called the friends, family, and fools, so 3Fs. And we got a little bit of money to get started, to basically do our first tech platform. And it's essentially what I've learned about funding, because then we raised an angel round, and then we raised a seed round from a venture arm. But it's basically managing a sales pipeline, and it's basically it's a couple of things. If I had to break it down, I would break it down in terms of how you prepare before you fundraise. Okay, so how you prepare before you fundraise is you can probably sit down with somebody that already raised capital and go through every scenario and every question that you'll need to know before you start that journey. You know, how do you plan to expand? How do you plan to grow? What are your revenue numbers? What are your cost numbers, right? How much money do you want? How much money do you want? How much money do you need? And for what reasons, right? How are you going to make it work, right? How are you going to grow the business with this capital? So I think preparation is one of the most important things before jumping into it. That's the first one. The second one is basically, how do you get leads into the pipeline? How do you get investor leads into the pipeline of investor pipeline and segmenting those, right? So there's different tiers of investors and you can get them from different sources. So like managing those two. So the second one is, how do I get investors, whether it's through angel groups, whether it's through connections of advisors, whether it's through crowdsourcing, whether it's through, other founders, right? Is how do you get investors? After you get the investors and the introductions, how do you segment them in terms of what they focus on, what their check sizes are, and essentially where do they fit in, right? So that segmentation is going to allow you not to waste time, because it's so time consuming. And if you don't have a good prep, and if you don't start doing that segmentation, then what I've seen and what I went through the first time around is you start spending so much time in the wrong things and time passes by. The only thing that will never stop for anything is just time passing by. And then the last thing, 6 months went by and it was like that, 6 months went by. So I think that's the second step is all about basically refining that pipeline. And I think the third step is all about consistency and follow-ups in those filtered conversations, right? So consistency, follow-ups, building up the story, right? Building up the story and just follow-up after follow-up after follow-up after follow-up. And I think it's a process, right? I think like I would follow the exact same, next time that I go after a fundraise, I'm going to follow the exact same fundraise. And I think you can really, really be very specific in terms of where you're spending your time and how you're spending your time.